Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio recording 8:41 p.m. on a Monday night. You won't be listening to it tonight unless you somehow hacked our system, or you're hiding in the walls or the roof, some clandestine fan operation. You won't be listening to it live. My name's Jake. I'm joined in the studio, surrounded apparently by covert fans hiding in the air vents, by Sambo and Johnny. How are we, chaps?
Oh, absolutely
very
sensational.
Clandestine, is that how we say it?
Oh, you a clandestine sort of operator.
I am.
Oh.
Well, maybe I don't know. It's one of those words. Wow, I don't know how many
You're
times I've
probably right. I'm probably just
said
butchering
it out loud. I reckon I'm in between.
Clandestine.
I reckon in my head, yeah. I don't think I'm clandestine or clandestine. I think I'm clandestine. I think I'm a bit of both. I'm the, like you said, Johnny. I think I'm the two joined together.
Clandestine sounds very Northern American.
And clandestine sounds like it could be right though. I will concede clandestine does sound like a word. Clandestine
sounds like somewhere that North America might invade for oil, to be fair, John.
But clandestine, not clandestine. Clandestine is how John and I have.
Clandestine.
Yeah. But it's one of those words that I think I've read a lot. I don't know how much I've heard it or said it. So
that
we take you now to
Family Guy episode where Boris's dad is talking about the wind when something bangs in the night, and his wife goes, "What was that?" And he goes, "It must have been the wind, because it's pronounced wind." Yes, I've only read it.
We take you now to troubling news from clandestine. No, we take
Jake's
you now.
Jake's right, according to you, according to the Googles. Grandfather Google says clandestine.
Grandfather Google.
Yeah, and like as I said, hearing you say it made me go, "Is that how it's said?" So it wasn't. I wasn't calling you out.
Oh.
I just, I've learned something new.
I didn't feel called out, to be fair.
I don't think I'm going to say it.
I felt like this was a safe space.
I think this is one of those times where I'm just going to accept that I'm too old to change.
I feel like Sam's having that that furry white monkey meme where it's like looking at its hands going, "Have I been wrong this whole time?"
Very white monkey meme. I thought you were just saying Sam's being like a very white. Just going, I know I'm wrong, but I'm not changing.
You know what I'm talking about?
I don't actually. I honestly.
Oh, really?
Don't. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I'm learning all these things. Pronunciation, memes.
I'll find it and I'll see
memes. The
meme.
Yeah, just find us the GIF, John. And on this episode tonight, comeback cats, crush crows in round 5. There's some alliteration for you. Cheap literary trick. News wrap. We'll talk some news. And then round 6 preview. The news and the round 6 bit will be for Patreon subscribers. So hook us up to your wallet. Part with some shekels to get the rest dickles. All right, let's jump in, chaps. Round 5. Let's jump in. But before we jump in, officially, we have to say a big, not a clandestine thank you, but very overt and gratuitous thank you to our media network sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase. Yes, indeed. We thank them very much for their sponsorship of the Hoops Crew Media Network. It is time, chaps. Round 5. Time to recap the match. I was at work today, chaps, and had a what would I say? Maybe an adolescent gent come up to me to buy a ticket at the movie theater at which I work, and he said, "Did you watch the golf this morning?" And I said, "No." And he was so disappointed and crestfallen, and I really felt like he looked genuinely disappointed. He's like, he goes to his friends, "That's the 4th person that said that today." I just had to share that with you, that if you're out there worried that society is crumbling into a golfless abyss, there's another
Golfless
generation
golf.
of people watching it.
I was busy watching the F1 this morning at 1 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you've got your Oscar Piastri hat on.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Anyway, that was just a brief aside. Let's jump in. Thursday night, chaps, had me pondering pertinent 21st century questions. Questions like, will I get the black lung and die on the podcast? Questions like, what?
Oh, shit.
I am going to die. Let me start again. If I have to go a third time, I'm going to need to get some water or something, because I'm about to have to rant big time. Thursday night had me pondering pertinent 21st century questions. Questions like, what was Napoleon's greatest tactical blunder? Well, a visit to my nearest Reddit thread found pipe-puffing George R.R. Martin types, elbow patch-wearing university study buddies, and Johnny's great aunt, Gabby Skirtbellows, debating whether it was in fact the continental system or the invasion of Russia that punctured the ambitions of the fun-sized French emperor. Roughly half a second into their Francophile histrionics, I realized I didn't give a fuck about Napoleon, or how or why his empire fell. What did I care about? The greatest sport on earth. Debatably the greatest sport on earth. But when it's played like it was on Thursday night, there's significantly less to debate. A spectacle, an expression of a kind of Australianism maybe I can give a shit about. Fearless, unbridled, attacking football that lacked for nothing in terms of defensive effort, despite being less coddled and restrained by the usual kick it sideways, kick it sideways, kick it sideways, maintain possession and don't fuck it up, that has become the status quo of professional football, nay, most professional sports. The Adelaide Crows, resplendent before their home fans in gather round, very, very, very good. Beautiful attacking football unlocked the Cats repeatedly in the first half, and by midway through the second term, the home side had a 30-point lead in hand, and the frothing cauldron of the Adelaide Oval seemed ready to see that margin bubble out to face-melting altitudes. However, stop, backtrack, little Serenity reference for you there. Last week, on this very podcast, we said, you'll remember this, that a moment would come in this game where the Adelaide Crows would be ascendant. Their quadrant of vertically virulent forwards would be alight. The lead would be ballooning, the crowd baying for blood, and in that moment, we would learn something about this 2025 crop of Cats. Well, we gone did some learning. No sooner had that lead touched 5 goals than immediately a Geelong response emerged. Who? It was Patrick Dangerfield and Shannon Neal on the end of it, but that owed those goals to fierce work in the middle from centre bounce battering ram Tom Atkins and company. Darcy Fogarty fired a mighty shot back with a booming goal, but this Cats team had poked a wound and now they began to open it. 5 goals either side of halftime put Geelong noses in front midway through the third term, and despite the Crows kicking back out to an 8-point lead at the final change, the team from Cardinia Park would not be denied. Cats footy, at its best, is an irresistible, free-flowing, ferocious force of creativity that unbinds opponents and feasts on the carcasses of scattered defenders. In the final term, this was Geelong at its best. The names of players who contributed are too numerous to bother with penning the specifics. The scoreboard shows 2 fourth-quarter goals to Patrick Dangerfield and 3 to Jeremy Cameron. Remember him? And they were transcendent, eviscerating forces up forward, but the whole fleet of hooped marauders that laid waste to the Adelaide Oval shoreline are worthy of sea poems being written of their deeds. A famous win, a rousing win, A win you can build a season and maybe more on top of. Boo all you want. He's won a 21st century flag. You're still waiting. Cats are 18, 11, 119. Crows 15, 10, 100. Chaps, your thoughts.
Holy shit.
Who first?
I'm pumped.
Who's diving in? Who's going into the breach?
You go first.
You
Sam.
lead off tonight, Sambo, because you missed out last week. So off you go.
Yeah, I mean, you've summed it up and described the affair beautifully, Jake. I think jumping around a little bit, I feel like my thoughts are a little bit scattered. I don't think in real time it felt to me like we were on the ropes as much as I'm hearing or that I heard at the time, because I watched part of the game on my iPad while I put the kids to bed, and then I listened to part of the game on the radio while I drove over to John's, and then I watched the remainder of the game with you guys. And both the broadcast and definitely the radio call when I was on my way over made it sound like in the seconds it took me to go from my iPad to out to the car and turn the radio on, it felt like we must have let through 7 goals. The way that they were talking about the Cats hanging on, Cats doing well to stay within a sniff, Cats gasping for air. Oh, the Crows miss a shot, and then they go, "Oh, you don't want to give the Cats, any light of day to think they're in this game." And I was like, "Oh shit, all right." And I came through your door to sit down, John, and the margin was like what 9 points or something. I think obviously, as you said, Jake, that they did get a healthy buffer of about 30 or so points at one point, but it never felt sustained. Like they felt very efficient, but I felt pretty much for the whole game, and even having now watched most of the game again, in a patchwork quilt sort of way, I still don't feel like it was like a game of two halves, as I'm being told. Like it felt like a really good game of football, close game of football, pretty much the whole way until we were, 4 minutes out from the end. I think I felt pretty confident that we were home and hosed, and a little intensity did just kind of go out the door. But up until that point, I felt like there was a disparity in efficiency. There was a real toing and froing from the coach's box, people throwing magnets around and people responding, players putting the game on their back to try and help. But it to me felt like a real wrestle the whole way. So I just find that interesting that my experience with the game was not, because I've literally heard it. It's in headlines, it's been in broadcasts, it's been in people recapping it. A game of two halves where the Crows flogged the crap out of the Cats and the Cats came charging back in the second half. Never felt that way to me. It felt like they had a really good little purple patch there. And then we had a couple of slightly shorter purple patches, but like overall it was a very sustained, pretty even contest. And I think that's what, like, people are going, is this the game of the season? All that kind of stuff. And it may be, but people say, is this the game of the season? And then they talk about things like how good the Crows were early and how much the Cats came back. Whereas conversely, I think it was such a good game because it felt like it was toing and froing constantly in the space of 5 minutes, not in the space of a half. I don't know. I don't know if you guys agree with that, if you feel like you had a different experience, but that was my experience of the game. Was kind of like it never felt like we were out of it, and it never felt like we were just blowing them off the park either. Like it always felt like they could at some point move the right magnets, get a bit of a wind, get the right a decision going the right way. But immense. Chris Scott said it was a finals-like atmosphere, and it really was. Like, what a good pressure cooker, what a good test for some of these young lads. Lawson Humphries is he's had a few games now, but he's still so fresh. Likewise, Dempsey. But guys like Connor O'Sullivan to like virtually look the same as he has other weeks, if not better, under this kind of pressure and in this sort of limelight. Finals are a long way off, but I think it's really nice to have seen how this team handles like a chaotic, frenetic, mob-like crowd, raining over it. decisions going against you, momentum behind you, then stopping suddenly. Like I think it's just a really good sign of things to come. And the last thing I guess I would add is watching watching the press conference again as I did tonight. They had our results so far laid out at the bottom. The Cats, results so far, and despite the losses, we only lost by 7 and 9 points, I think, and then we won by 30 something and maybe 20 or 30 something again, and then
So it's like, wasn't it close to 78 against Fremantle? And then
yes,
39
yeah,
against
and then
Melbourne.
39 against Melbourne, and then obviously what was last night? The other night was
19.
19 points. So 19 points obviously is not a huge win, but I think it's reflective of how that game went. But it's just it was nice to see it and remember, because we have been saying it, but see it again and go, yeah, a couple of kicks and we could have pinched if not both of those losses, and suddenly the dialogue around the Cats is different. Suddenly the Cats are fighting for the top spot and looking like ignited, and it's just funny. A couple of kicks, couple of decisions, couple of poor choices, whatever it is, goes the wrong way. And you're a mid-table side instead of a instead of sitting on top. But I think that is to say, just those results on top of all of them, even the losses on top of this win, I still think we're in a really good stead. Like I think people maybe pumped their brakes a little early on expectations. I think our expectations can still be pretty high.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think Johnny and I talked about on the last pod, and I'll hand pass to you for your opening statements, Johnny. But we talked about, you just have to be in position by the middle of the season to attack your goal. So if you're top four, as long as with say 10 games to go, you know what you have to do to make the top four in your last 10 games. Like, who gives a shit? Like whether you the 2022 example is a great one. We're 5-4 after we played 9 matches and really hadn't put much together. I don't think there's any need for anyone to be going like, oh shit, if for whatever reason we get through say the first 8 games we're 4-4 or something, like no need to pump hit the panic button. But yeah, Johnny, your thoughts on the game? Anything to add with what Sam has said? Anything to respond to?
Yeah, I was feeling the same as Sam. It was such a incredibly close game, and even though, as they said, the Crows got out to 30-point lead, I never felt like we were that far behind. And at halftime, we were talking about if the stats were close, because it felt really close in the game. And I looked up the stats, and they were pretty much dead even at halftime. And I'm looking up the stats now. The biggest stat difference that would make, well, it doesn't make any difference, but the biggest differential in stats is hitouts, which was 50 to Crows, 29 to us. Everything else is basically marginal. It's no point going through it. Basically dead even. Like the efficiency, Crows are 0.1% better than us. 71.2 to 71.1, and efficiency inside 50, the Cats were 0.8% better at 50.8 to the Crows 50. So yeah, I remember we were chatting the night and saying the same thing about the commentary, saying Cats were lucky to hang in there. They're just grasping on to dear life to keeping this game. And yeah, we're just like, what the hell are they talking about? Because it didn't feel that way. It definitely didn't look that way. It just felt like the Crows got off to that little bit of a better start in terms of kicking goals. But yeah, the Cats just didn't look too worried, and I wasn't worried. It just felt very calm, relaxed. They knew what was coming. They knew what was required to do, and they went out and did it. And it was a really satisfying win. I don't think I've been dissatisfied since the 2022 grand final. I was probably definitely a lot more satisfied after that game, but this game is probably the next most satisfying. Just going there, that was a hard fought victory, but a really well played, well thought out, well coached, well played. Everyone played their part. Everyone did their job exceptionally well. And it just sets up our season nicely. That we came up against the best scoring team, easily dealt with their full forwards once we sort of got that midfield backline sorted out in its way, which didn't need much sorting out, to be honest. And yeah, we just took control of that game pretty easily after half time. And I don't think it was a tale of two halves. I think it was a tale of one really good game between two pretty good teams. Well, one really good team, one average team, I'd say. But yeah, like overall, a really satisfying win, and one I think that's just sets up our season nicely. It gives a lot of young guys the confidence, gives some of our senior guys that needed that confidence boost. And I feel like they're ready to attack the rest of this season full on and have no fear.
For me, I think that, I mean, you could make an argument that two of Geelong's best wins since the 2022 flag. So if you discount anything that happened in 2022 in the last 2 and a bit seasons, that two of them have come at Adelaide Oval. The qualifying final, was it a qualifying final or a semi-final? Whatever the game was that we rooted Port Adelaide over in Port Adelaide. It was a qualifying final. Like that and this, two of the better victories the Cats have had post 2022 flag. There's some other contenders, definitely. Think of a game against Melbourne in 2023 down at Cardinia Park. It was an ugly win, but it was those are the sort of wins. I put up a stat in the Hoops Crew Discord, which you should absolutely join. I think you can find the link on all the Hoops Crew's social media. But Geelong, since 2007, 312 wins, 126 losses, 3 draws, a winning percentage of 70.7%. It's games like this. It's games like that one against Melbourne. Same season that we, 2023, we also beat Port Adelaide, who had, I think, a fair bit to play for down at Cardinia Park. We beat them as well in a similarly sort of gritty contest. Like, it's those wins. It's a comeback against Melbourne in the last quarter where Zach Tui kicked the match-winning goal in 2018, I believe it was. It's all those games that add up to make that winning percentage. It's games that you could rightly go, well, fuck, we gave it a good crack. We went over to Adelaide. We played in a high-scoring shootout without our 3 best defenders. We came up short by a goal or 2. That's perfectly acceptable. Oh, we played against Melbourne. We're undermanned. Gary Rowan knocked Jessica Cameron's head off in the first 10 minutes. We went down by a point. It's fairly acceptable. It's these games, to me, that define and continue to, infuse the mythology of the Cats with life. It's this shit that keeps the aura maintained for teams. It's why we continue to be the benchmark. It almost doesn't matter where we are on the ladder. We're 2-2 and traveling over there, and yet they'll be setting their sights on us, going, this is a chance to measure ourselves against Geelong, because Geelong don't like losing, and they don't accept losing. They don't accept the excuses. They go and try and make things happen no matter who they've got out there or where they're playing or who they're playing. And I love that about this club. On the tale of two halves thing, for me, I've been watching a lot of bike racing recently. To me, it felt like Adelaide really launched a race, an attempt to win the race in the second quarter. They went all out in that spurt where they kicked I think it was 5 goals, 5 of the 6 goals to start the second quarter. And it was that was when their lead blew out to 30 points. And I do think at that moment that Geelong had to reach and find something, or they might have gone away with it. That, to me, was the pivotal moment in the game of okay, it's been back and forth. Totally agree with this, Sambo. It was definitely a seesawing contest in the first quarter. The score worm will show you that. But to start that second quarter, they sprinted away and seemed to just be finding lots of answers. And that's the only point I was like, I think we even said it at the time, like, we need a response now. We need, it's going to be interesting to see what we do. And what we did was we went on and kicked 13 goals to 5 for the rest of the match after that moment. So that was that little proving ground. And so, yeah, I agree. It wasn't quite a tale of two halves because we kicked, 4 goals to end the first half. So the match had already begun to turn there. And as you said, it was quite an even opening to the game. There was that one moment where it looked like the Crows had cracked us, perhaps, but they didn't because Geelong found another gear, and just the way we went about it was just so, I don't know, so inspiring and so exciting. And the fact that it was some of the usual brand names, but then it's some of the overlooked brand names like Tom Atkins, who just cracked in and was like, I'm going to win all the hard ball here out of the middle and get it going our way. So, no, I loved it. I thought it was such a good win.
Yeah, sensational win.
And like you said, Jake, these are the games that can define, and these are the games that can end up mattering when you look back on them. So it's nice to appreciate it at the time. And they're also the kind of games that, like, it is easy to lose. Like, it's not it's not hard to go. And this, I guess, feeds into the way the game was going. And maybe to give people the benefit of the doubt, to give the commentators the benefit of the doubt, maybe this is what they were foreseeing, not necessarily what had happened thus far to make it be like, oh, the Cats are need to hold on for dear life here. But maybe they were more like talking about what we are. I'm not sure, but to be generous, maybe they were talking about what might happen. Because I think of games like Buddy Franklin's milestone game, and there's been some more. There's been like that aren't coming to mind now. But you feel like you're a footnote in the other team's story, and you're sort of you're a little bit incapable of turning the tides of fortune. And that game, I guess, gathered around opening night in Adelaide. It's Adelaide. Like, that does feel like the narrative there is Adelaide doing really well. They had that unfortunate loss the week before, putting it back on track in front of the home crowd, setting their season up, rah, rah, rah. And it sort of felt like the Cats just weren't willing to go, we're not just going to be the bit player. We're not going to be the antagonist of this story that's like just there in the background of the front page, walking past as the player in focus celebrates. Like it did feel like a wrestle in that way of whose narrative is winning out here. So yeah, like, I do agree with, like, it did blow out, and it could have blown out more had we not done stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't mean to do a disservice to the Crows or us by saying that it was, oh no, it was never one way or the other. But I do think that people that are trying to sell the narrative of it as a comeback win, a tale of two halves, I think they're doing a disservice to both teams as well, because that sounds like we only turned up and played the second half and they fell off. Oh, 5-day break, they got tired, blah 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 blah. Like, I just think both teams were trying so hard, so much throughout that game. And in a lot of ways, it was just Adelaide's efficiency when they came up with the answers, when they tried things, they were working. Whereas it felt like even in the first quarter and the second quarter, to a degree, it felt like we were getting as much, if not more, ball, and we just weren't able to effectively do what we wanted to do with it. Whereas then they would pick it up, boom, 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 down the other end and kick a goal. And games can go that way because they could have done that all night and won by 70 points. And we could still look at the stats and go, disposals are kind of even, like contested possessions kind of even, marks kind of even, because they could have just continued to be just more and more effective and lethal.
Well, the 0.8% accuracy in goal was like the difference.
Enough.
This is not much. It's not much, and I think the efficiency inside 50, it just sums up that game. It wasn't much in it. They had plenty of opportunities in that third quarter to extend their their lead. They had 3 shots in a row that all missed, and then we go back and get a nice goal by Oliver Dempsey, which I think it was off that mark that probably shouldn't have been a mark. Probably should have just been play on. But you take them when it goes your way. You get frustrated when it doesn't, but that happens. But yeah, it was just one of those games that was just so close throughout the entire game. As I agree with you, Sam. It's like it's not a saying it's a comeback and it's a tale of two halves. Yeah, it doesn't sum up the whole game. Yeah, it was a comeback by the Cats, but it also doesn't mean that the Crows just folded over and gave up. Like the stats are incredibly close. As I said, there's not much in it, and that's not that doesn't sound of one team giving up and just surrendering to the other because they were out muscling them, out tackling them, out focusing them on every stat. It's just they were just that little bit less accurate in front of goal, and it doesn't take much. So yeah, it was a really good game. Like best game of the round. The same play, best game of the year, and yeah, it was just super exciting to watch. It's probably the most relaxed I've been watching a game for a long time. I don't know what it was about the night. I was just very calm, chill, relaxed. Got very excited as we were getting those goals to work our way back in. But yeah, I was just very chill, very glad I was there watching it live with you guys. It was a really enjoyable experience. And I think that was the nature of the game as well. It wasn't like they were getting really good like calls that were not there from the umpires. Like I think both teams were getting really some odd calls and some odd calls going against them, but it never felt like one team was getting the absolute rub of the green. It felt very even in there. And I think the free kicks, 22 to 25. Like every stat is just, I think the biggest difference is like 7 in all the other stats. That's the biggest the gap gets. It's like 7 points in difference. So, yeah, I think it was just a really good game. And I think it was just one of those games where what sides, better players stood up at the right moments. And I think Tom Atkins towards the end of that second quarter, stood up, got those 2 goals. Was the reason why we got those 2 goals, I think, to Dangerfield, was his just efforts to get that ball moving forward and not giving up and putting his body on the line to get the ball out to Bailey Smith, to Max Holmes, to Jack Bowes, whoever was in that midfield. He just was incredible all night. And unfortunately, he didn't get 10 tackles, but he got 9 clearances. And I really think Tom Atkins was one of the biggest differences in late in that second quarter to get us back into that game. Like his efforts, as I said, were just incredible.
We go back to our Vikings analogy that we concocted several seasons ago after the Joel Selwood retirement. Spoiler alert if you've not watched the TV show Vikings. Great leading character, Ragnar Lothbrok. Eventually they kill him off, then try and divide the personalities of the character between his sons. We joked at the time, like Selwood retires. Now Geelong have to try and piece together Selwood impact from other players. And like there was something Selwoodian about like just the attack that Atkins brought. Like, of course he's not Joel Selwood, but there was something familiar about the way Geelong's midfield suddenly went, we'll just turn the game back our way now. Thank you very much. And like a lot of that was built on the back of the work of Tom Atkins. Sambo, did you think there was a distinct tactical change from Geelong that got them going? Like I thought that they probably, from where I saw, I thought it was more of a use of handball in the second half that probably cut them open a bit.
Yeah, I think we were trying to. You have to forgive me. It's escaped me a little bit here. There was a game where we did the opposite, where we changed it up to do the more lateral kicking, to take control of it a little bit more, and that's what allowed us back in. It could have been against Melbourne, yeah. I think it probably was, and that was what sort of allowed us to get back into that particular game, slowing it down just a fraction, like not playing like real chip kick kind of stop start football, but just using the feet more, especially coming off the back, using the switch more, and it's something we've done to great effect many times for a long time. And it seemed like that was kind of plan A, and Adelaide were just way too well set up and way too aggressive. And they just weren't letting us get those easy marks. Like you'd get like from a kick out from the goal, we'd get maybe 2 easy marks. That first one and maybe the next one. But more often than not, it was just that first one at best. And it was such a flow-on effect of that perceived pressure, being under so much pressure, getting a bit fumbly, rushing kick suddenly, and so you're playing an ineffective style because we're trying to go for clean, crisp marks and kicks, switching it, going down the line, or swinging it back and switching it over again. And it just wasn't working, and we were fumbling in really key areas and allowing them to be so ruthless, going back the other way. And so yeah, that changed to a much more aggressive style. It kind of let us live in the eye of the storm a little bit. I don't think Adelaide's pressure dropped too much, but it did mean that we were playing. That was our plan A now, was that we were playing amongst pressure because we're handballing, obviously, because, obviously if you mark it, you relieve that little bit of pressure when you've got that moment. So I think that it was almost, some heyday cat stuff. And I think there was a tiny little bit of that in the Melbourne game when we saw it live. I remember saying to you, like, lads, like that was a little bit 2007, but it was probably only 2 or 3 times in the back half where it actually worked. Whereas this game, that felt like, it felt like we were really able to effectively execute that under pressure. So I think that's a big tactical shift. I'm not so sure how much it was player led versus coach led. Chris Scott's so coy on that stuff, and he always seems to want to give as much credit to the players as he can. My assumption would be that's a coach going down there and going, no, less kicks. We're doing this. They're doing this. This is where they're beating us. This is where they're cutting us off. We've got to go to this. But I suppose it's possible that as a group, they just go, let's let's do, like, maybe it's discussed. Maybe it's not even discussed. Maybe it's more of just a reaction to the way Adelaide were playing. But I think that was definitely the big one. Definitely didn't have to roll Paddy Dangerfield back as much, but he did, contrary to what a lot of people have said in the media, he did play on ball several times throughout the game. He wasn't left up in the goal square the whole time. But like it was probably the most full forward he's played, and it allowed him to be the most full forward of a contributor that he's been. And I thought this isn't really a tactical thing, but it just popped into my mind talking about that. It was really interesting where they asked him before this match in the pre-gather round interview. They asked Dangerfield if he'd been working on his kicking accuracy. They basically were like, if there's a criticism, if there was to be one criticism on your game, it's your shot conversion. Like, have you been practicing
if there was?
that? Yeah, like like they're going, oh, I'm not saying it, I'm saying it. But if I was saying it, what would you say? And he didn't really seem to like take it to heart or kind of like get defensive at all. But he did lay out really interestingly, but so simply, that I had not thought of, which is basically when you're kicking goals from the middle, you're generally doing it off the back of a run. It's free flowing in the flight of the game, and you've been running, or you've played on ball in the middle, and then you've bolted up there to get into a position. So he was saying it's simply just that he's not as tired. Like when he's taking his mark and he's shot on goal, he's been standing in the goal square, and the ball comes up and he runs and he marks it, and then he can kick, and that's what's led to him being more efficient, as opposed to, he said he hasn't changed anything with his goals, with his goal scoring, like his goal kicking technique or anything like that. But it was just an interesting, but so bloody obvious once he said it, but it just hadn't occurred to me.
Yeah.
Because he's kicking beautifully. Like he's not like at 100% strike rate or anything, but
4 goals,
he's pretty darn dependable at the moment. Sorry, you go.
I was just saying, I'm looking at how many goals he got last week. I'm pretty sure it was 3 goals last week. 3 goals, 2. But yeah, he's been very dependable in front of goal. And yeah, it's just crazy how simple a thing it is. Just I'm not tired when going to kick a goal. And I haven't noticed anything different in his kicking technique or the way he approaches the kick in forward 50. So it's obviously that he's just not as tired as he is when he's running full pelt as he does from the centre inside forward 50. Man, is he looking good? I'm glad he's
I
playing
would
full forward.
I would say too with him in the full forward, and I don't think it's anything revolutionary or revelatory to say, but he's like I think
Clandestine.
his biggest the biggest benefit from Dangerfield. Obviously, we love the 4 goals. That's great, but I think the biggest thing that he's brought is that the crashing of packs, because when
Yeah.
Hawkins hadn't been able to do it like last year, and then obviously when he was injured and out of it, but even like just the last couple of seasons maybe hadn't been as good at it. Cameron's not necessarily that guy. He can on occasion, but it's definitely not what you necessarily want him to be having to do. Henry's not
Neil's
quite
not there yet.
there yet, and Neil is the big one that we've been saying. We got it. You've been saying it. Specifically Johnny, like we need him to be like trusting his body a bit more. He's a big boy, use it a bit more, just crash the packs, just get hands to it. And that's really like Dangerfield's just bringing a masterclass in that, in terms of like he's taking some marks, but then sometimes he's behind the pack. Like there's no way in hell he's taking the mark. But if he can just bring it to ground, like I would, as I said, the 4 goals are great, but I would hazard a guess that what he contributed beyond the stats sheet to the other goals, and if he hadn't kicked 4 goals, the other players that maybe would have been there to pick up the pieces and fill in and kick those 4 goals from somewhere else, based on the other work that he was doing, like I think that is the biggest thing, because with the style we're playing and delivery inside 50, sometimes it just is going to be a chaos ball. Especially when it's coming off Atkins, Holmes, or Bailey Smith, it's going to be floated in there. And how many times have we sat here and watched chaos balls picked off over and over and over again? And we go, why do we keep doing this? And it's funny, you just throw danger in there, and that's how that works. That's why we keep doing this.
The really crazy part is it crashes a pack, and then he can also collect that ball after he's crashed a pack. He's that quick and that determined to get the ball. It's crazy to think he's still playing the way he played earlier on in his career, but he's just doing it in forward 50 and being extremely damaging, and also not getting as tired or worn out, so he can do it longer. And it's just it's crazy.
Well, it's
Crazy.
funny we've said that he's probably going to be down to doing things like 6 times a game. Like maybe we'll see half a dozen moments, and how much more impactful it can be as a forward if your 6 moments come the 6 times you're near the ball as a full forward. Whereas I guess to compare it to someone like Bailey Smith, where we can't have Bailey Smith doing 6 things. He needs to do like 20 things.
Yeah.
to be effective in his role, because they're not small. They're not small things, but like the value of Bailey Smith is cumulative. Whereas once Danger's getting a little bit older, like he's doing this 3 or 4 times a game, but like rolling him out forward seems to have liberated him, because he goes, I do that 6 times a game, and I'm kicking 4 goals and setting another 1 or 2 up.
And it's just crazy. He's, as you said, he crashes his pack, but also his marking ability is the strongest nearly out of the team in that forward line. Like apart from Cameron, his marking is just incredible. Like if he goes up for a mark over his head, both arms up, there's not many people that are going to dislodge that. And if they do, as I said earlier, he's going to be first on the ground after that ball.
There's only a few players that I think from like I can't speak for the other 17 clubs because I don't fucking watch them.
Okay.
But there's only there's only a few players from Geelong's current team that I go, oh yeah, I could see them like surviving and playing really great footy, like being a champion in another era, like a more violent, era of footy, and I like Dangerfield is definitely probably at the top of the
Yes.
list. For the Cats, like
Absolutely.
I just think he feels like such a throwback. But like having Dangerfield in your Ford 50, it's essentially like having a freight train made out of human meat. And it's just like choo choo, all aboard the Dangerfield Express, stopping at no stations, like smash through
Welcome to
everyone.
the danger zone.
And it's funny when you like to contrast some of his interview quotes. Like, do you remember, was it 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago when he said, "I'm just going to have to change how I attack the ball. I'm just going to have to
I
change
reckon it
how,
was like
my
pre-season for this season.
and then on the weekend it was, well, I kind of believe that if you go hard, you're less likely to get injured. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh, good. I'm
yeah.
glad that change stuck.
Yeah. Now I know we probably have to move on from
Chap-
Dangerfield, but I would like to quickly say, just acknowledge
yes.
the journey. Maybe this means I'm assuming he's in our votes. So maybe it means we don't have to talk about him too much when we get to the votes. But like the journey, I'm only just now thinking about the journey of us with Dangerfield as a podcast. Because one of our earliest things that we did as a podcast that is notable, something that we covered and talked about, was his big suspension, the big hip and shoulder, cleaning up.
Yeah.
God, I can't remember the player.
An Adelaide Crows
Crows
player.
player.
And it was a
was an
Crows
Adelaide
player,
Crows.
yeah. And that kind of like us questioning a little bit, like going, we love the Cats, we're all for the Cats, but like Danger's attitude, this Dangerfield's attitude, don't know if he's like, blah blah blah, and kind of, yeah, I do remember us sort of saying we didn't know how we felt about how he fit in with the culture, how he like, like how he would go essentially. Like I don't know if we said this in specific words, but as a senior player, like being an example, it's hilarious to me. Like not not in a, I'm not down on us like our opinion at the time, but just like what a crazy journey to now have Danger as like the captain, and not only just being like, oh, he's the captain, but he's the guy that does lead from an ethical standpoint as well. Like, I do think that was the moment when he got that suspension and he sort of came out and took his lumps with it. Like that was a real beginning, real nexus of an evolution for his approach to, like I guess his image as well, like how he was perceived and what kind of thing he was putting out in the universe. And yeah, what a ride it's been to watch him evolve and turn into Captain Courageous.
It's
He was
been a
one of my
fun journey.
least favorite Geelong players when this
Yeah,
podcast started. He was
And
just
now-
like eternally frustrated me the way, just his kicking and just the whole style he played. But I'll
he was
say
tired,
this,
Jack. He was tired.
the way he played in 2021, like our game style changed in 2022. So like he was frustrating me at a time where we're still trying to play this sort of possession based game, but his game really was burst out of a pack and boot it long and get it going and chaos and carnage. And it's like, it really, in hindsight, I should have been frustrated at what we were trying to do with the pieces we had. And they changed all that in 2022 and played more, I think, to the strengths of the players that we had. And Jesus, it's been a lot of fun to watch, since they made that change.
I think you can also say exact same about Tom Atkins. His journey is been incredible. And I think, just as you said that about Dangerfield and not playing to Danger's strengths and other players' strengths, I think Atkins fits perfectly in there as well. It wasn't playing to how Tom Atkins played when he was building up. Like, yeah, there was, I think it was 2020 or 2021 when he was in the defense and just having no impact. I'm pretty sure he had like some injury concerns, but he's just like this player that we're like, oh, Tom Atkins, he's done this and he's cost us another goal. What are we going to do with him? Then they're moving him to midfield, let him play the way he knows how to play, the way he wants to play. And now he's becoming one of the most important midfielders in our team. Like he's become that next Dangerfield to lead that midfield pack, to be the one to get in there, get it out to Bailey Smith to Max Holmes, Zach Guthrie when he's in there, Jack Bowes when he's in there. It's just that player that he's not afraid to hurt himself to benefit the team. And I think moving Atkins into the midfield was the smartest choice Scott has made, like moving Dangerfield in forward line this year. He just knows how to put players in the right position if they're not working out in a certain spot. They just the way he works is great, and it's worked amazing for two players. And who knows how many other players are better players for the way Chris Scott has put him in the team.
Well, Sam DeConing came in as a key forward. That's one I can
that's
think
another one.
of. That's
I was going to
benefited.
segue right into Sam DeConing myself.
And that we never need
Reece
to see him in the
Stanley.
ruck again.
Well,
let's do
that's what
our.
I was. That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Is that like in Chris Scott we trust, in the team we trust, in the coach we trust, but like that doesn't mean they're not fallible. And I think Scott.
Definitely not.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Scott Adkins. Neither of those names are right, and that's an actor. Tom Atkins. Like I think it was even as recent as last year, and it was due to injury and like a bit of having to patchwork quilt stuff a little bit that he was getting rolled into halfback. And I remember us going, I hate him having to play halfback. Like even back when in those days that you were talking about, John, like I think we had seen him in the midfield, okay, and like it was always frustrating because you're like you say, we're not using those pieces correctly. And once they have now put Atkins back in, and I remember Jake all through last year, and I don't know if I'm thinking of a pod like early this year, like before this season, or if it was about last year, but I do remember a specific time when Jake was saying in one of the what I want to see, Jake was saying Atkins like not playing halfback, Atkins on ball whenever possible. And to be fair, I think he's still playing a varied role. Like he's sort of playing a bit of a negative role, a shutdown role occasionally on players, but he's being allowed to still impact the game in a more proactive way as well. So with that being said, Sam DeConing, like Chris Scott has said, he will not be continued to be played as a key back. Like he said that in his most recent press conference. Like how do we? Sam DeConing will not be continued. Like will not be a key back. Like that's not like he's there at the moment, but that's not where he's going. And he didn't specifically say he is going to be our ruckman. But what he did say was Sam's an incredibly versatile player. That's and basically that's a strength of him, but also like it makes it tough because you've got to figure out which of those strengths to lean into. But he didn't say he might be a key back. He said he will not be. So yeah, that's
lines
not
up every game at key back.
Just to throw it out there. And I'll be honest, Reece Stanley almost got a vote from me, like a vote of a solidarity vote. Like
quick, duck the fruit from the comments section.
I don't have to read that. I'm on social media. You just have to read it and not tell me about it. Protect my ego, Jake. Delete them. Like he was not the third. He was not the third best player on our team. I'm aware of that. But I've long said the votes can't only be about who's best. And specifically my one vote, I will generally throw around in a way that's more commemorative. It's like my 3 and 2 at the top. And then I have and this is my one vote, and this is why. Because and like sorry, I know you've got a point, John, but like I think it makes sense because generally I think you guys will find the same. You'll have your 3 vote locked in and then probably your 2 vote player. But then the 1 vote player could go to like 6 players. So like I feel like it's okay to like use that one in a more generous way to go. I'm not saying that those 3 and 2 were my 1 and 2 players for the game, and this player I'm giving a mention because they did this. And that for me was Stanley had the 3rd highest contested possessions on the team. Like I don't know. Like he didn't win the hitouts, obviously, but I still think I still think we look more dynamic with him in the ruck.
Definitely.
And he's an older boy. He's creaking when he's leaning down to get those contested possessions. But even so, like at the moment, to me, a senior Reece Stanley seems more beneficial to me than a green Sam de Koning. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
I was
not
just going to
saying
say,
don't do it. I question. I wonder.
I was just going to say, the way I tend to think of our votes is what players stood out to you the most. It doesn't have to be the best player on the ground or whatever. It's just what players had
Shit,
those
I better
moments
change the
that
name.
stood out to you.
What are the names
So,
at the
yeah.
moment? Oh, best on ground votes. I just saw the.
But best on ground votes for ourselves.
No. What
That's
John was
I've
saying is
always
John was
seen
saying
as
exactly what I was saying. John was saying
Yeah.
the 3 votes is definitely the best on
ground
ground for sure.
for us.
Yeah,
For us personally.
and then
It doesn't have to be for
yeah.
on the stats
Yeah.
or for the
I used to give
AFL
Gary Rowan 3
media.
votes for like 6 touches.
Yeah, that's fine. I would never question you giving Gary Rowan 3 votes for whatever. It's like, well, if that's the player that you thought was best in your mind, then that's good enough for me.
If the umpires can give votes purely based on a jumper number and the AFL fantasy points, then I think we're okay to do what we
Yeah,
want.
exactly. Absolutely.
100%. No, I agree. I'm all in. I'm all in favor. Let's upset the apple cart of the voting system. Let's
That's a mouthful.
let's rip. Let's now start the segment. Votes for players who stood out to us and did other stuff good too. I'm just gonna rip through mine. I reckon let's just rip through it and then talk about the why afterwards. Okay, so I went 1 vote Max Holmes. I went 2 votes Patrick Dangerfield. I went 3 votes Tom Atkins. What about you, Johnny?
Exactly the same. Max Holmes 1, P Daddy 2 votes, T Atkins 3 votes.
Sambo?
I'm very, very similar. But my 1 vote's Bailey Smith, 2 votes Patrick Dangerfield, 3 votes Tom Atkins.
Nice. I'm glad Bailey
All
Smith
right,
got in
so
there because it
Snuck
was
in.
between him and Max Holmes for me. But I think that goal from Max
So we've
Holmes
talked-
in the 3rd quarter after 20
Mm.
seconds just edged him. Plus the 800 meters gained. Sorry, Jake.
No, you're good. It's just fucking internet lag. We've talked a lot, obviously, about Dangerfield. Like, it's pretty obvious, like, why he gets, like, what all of us gave him the 2 vote. I feel like Tom Atkins, the 3 vote, is just pretty obvious. I reckon we were just probably 2 years too early on Tom Atkins potentially yet growing into like a real on-field leader for the Cats. Like, we went the early crow after Selwood went and said, Atkins might be, Geelong's deadliest unknown weapon in the midfield. Yeah, he's having career best. He's averaging 10.5 tackles through 5 games this season to go with 5 and a bit clearance or 5 clearances. His last 4 seasons, he's averaged 6.3 tackles in 2022, 7.6 in 2023, 6.5 tackles in 2024, 10.6 in 2025. And he's on pace at the moment. He's got 750 tackles in 132 games. So career, he averages 5.7 tackles. He only needs another 250 to get to 1,000. So by my count, if he continues to average 5 and a bit, he needs less than 50 games. 50 more seasons, 50 more games, 50 more seasons, he'll have about 40,000 tackles. He only needs less than 50 games. Yeah, to get to 1,000. For me, I'm a bit like you, Johnny. I split hairs between Max Holmes, between Bailey Smith. I had Brad Close hovering around my votes, which might be a surprising name to people, but I thought Brad Close was absolutely exceptional. 2 goals, 2 goal assists, 14 touches, couple of marks, couple of tackles. He's just so consistently good. And I just feel like you so rarely see him screw it up. So yeah, he was very close to my votes. I had 20 pressure acts, which was equals second most, with Bailey Smith behind Tom Atkins. So yeah, he was definitely hovering around. I ended up giving the nod to Holmes because honestly, on the night, he probably impacted my opinion of the game more. But there was probably 6, 7 players, 8 players maybe that could have got a 1 vote as well. I thought Connor O'Sullivan, for a youngster, had a pretty good night as well.
Yeah.
Sambo, why did you go with Bailey Smith in particular over, say, Holmes or someone else for your 1?
It's a bit like the opposite, like you were saying that Holmes impacted you the most on the night. Bailey Smith for me, like my 3 and my 2 were locked in for sure. I think no, my 3 definitely was Dangerfield was a little bit more like, like I didn't necessarily appreciate how much he did and how important his goals were until the rewatching. I was probably a little bit overawed by Cameron's goals actually on the night. Like they sort of stood out to me a little bit more, and were a little bit later in the game too. So it kind of like felt a little bit more like, recency bias. So Dangerfield popped up. He was probably a 1 vote, to be honest, in that mix. And then went out to a 2 on the rewatch. Bailey Smith for me was nowhere near my votes. Bailey Smith, I was being a grump about on the night. I was like, yeah, you got a lot of freaking touches, but did he do much with it? And yeah, I look at his disposal efficiency. Oh, it's down the 50s. I flew the bird. Oh no. He's got very pointy fingers near people. He poke someone's eye out. He wasn't even near my votes, to be honest. And on a rewatch, and then specifically rewatching the mini and then the highlights as well. And it's bad probably to base your votes off highlights, but I did get sucked into going, I've got to reward the fact that this is the player that we have been missing. Sans Cam Guthrie. This is like that. We just haven't had those highlights that that go for the highlights reel for Patrick Dangerfield probably lasts like 4 minutes. Not to diss his game, obviously, but a player that's just there all the time, covers the ground, gets his hands on it, smacks it. It's a bit of an ugly kick most of the time. Gets it forward most of the time, even if it's not necessarily to like the most advantageous spot. I love players that are, brutally efficient with that disposal as well. And Max Holmes is more efficient. Max Holmes is probably a slightly more obvious and typically probably where I would have gone with the votes. But yeah, as I said, just on the rewatch, just that kind of like just the dirty ball he can get, that kind of just reach and grab it and smack it forward. Like it just really appealed to me on a rewatch to go, this is 100% what we've been lacking. This has been the difference to us sometimes where we're like, God, Cameron's kicked 5 goals and we still can't win. I do feel like, and Atkins as well, like talking about Atkins again, we've long sung Atkins praises, but we've always said he's being asked to do what is not within his wheelhouse. And so I think it has liberated him to be like, I guess I don't have to be Selwood and Cam Guthrie and Dangerfield now that Dangerfield's getting older. Atkins can just be Atkins. And we've got Bailey Smith in here just racking up a heap of points. A heap of disposals, sorry. Heap of AFL fantasy points. So yeah, I just like
fantasy points.
I think at Smith will probably have some games where he creeps up to the 3 votes for me. Like I think he just will. He'll have some starring games, but I think there'll be a lot of games where he's doing exactly what he did on this night, and I won't give him a nod because he's just doing it and accumulating it. And just the fact that it really stuck out to me on a rewatch, I was like, I do have to give him some appreciation. Give him a bone here. Throw him some kibble because he's doing the right things.
Yeah,
I like that you pivoted there. You said throw him a bone because he used to be a Dogs player, but then you said throw him some kibble because now he's a cat. No, I like it. I like your votes, chaps. If people disagree, just remember.
He talked about the players you vote. That's why you can't vote the same as Jake.
I thought Who do you want to talk about, Johnny?
Said
Go
shit
for it. I didn't
about
realize. I
no one.
did not mean to cut you. I didn't
Hey.
mean to cut you off. I felt.
No.
John's barely been able to speak all
I
night,
thought
Jake.
you had.
All right. Me and
I've
John
really-
trying to get a word
No,
in
please.
edgeways, and you just keep cutting us off.
Go for it, Johnny. No, who do you want to talk about for real? Rip it. Let it rip.
I was going to talk about Tom Atkins. I think he was, as I said earlier, he's the reason we were able to turn it around late in that second quarter. Got those hugely important clearances, got him to goals to Shane
Bowls.
Neal.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, it was just one of those games. I think it was pretty much straight after. It was like, it's between Atkins and Dangerfield for my 3. I've thought about it all weekend. I think it was by Saturday. I was just like, I keep thinking of Atkins as the 3 votes for me, and I thought I just got to go with it. And I think it was just, I know, it's just one of those games where you see him play, and you just can't stop watching him play because he's in the camera all the time, getting the ball. He's got to position himself in the right position. He's laying tackles. I think he played more than 5 tackles throughout the night. Like, there was more points in that game where he laid more tackles and laid heaps of pressure on the Adelaide Crows and just didn't let them do anything really throughout that night. I'll stand by it. I think he is the main reason why the Cats were able to get victory on the Thursday night, because if he wasn't doing what he was doing, we don't get those late goals in the second quarter to get us back within, I think it was 19 points. So yeah, his contribution, his leadership, as I said last week, is fast becoming captain material. And I'll be putting I'll say he'll get my vote for next captain after Dangerfield retires in the next 20 years.
Well, Atkins is playing for 50, so
Yeah.
he's got plenty of runway.
Yeah,
to become
absolutely.
captain.
There was when I put up the quote about. Yes.
I was just going Max Holmes. I think Max Holmes.
Hang on. Now John's getting to talk about 2 players.
It's just a quick one, all right? It's just a quick one.
Let's talk about 2 players in a minute. John's going to talk about his 2 players now. Then you'll get to talk about 2 players later.
Listen to Dad Sam.
Your mum's just trying to do some work, okay? So you've got to just.
I think.
All right, come on.
Max Holmes is absolutely loving the fact that Bailey Smith is in this side, doing what he's doing, relieving him of a tag, and just the way they work in unison is pretty special. And then that goal by Max Holmes was the icing on the cake for me to get him in the votes. That was just sensational. And can't wait to see more. All right, Sam, you can talk about another player.
I don't actually want to. I was just taking the piss out of you for complaining.
Fair enough.
This is where the AFL fantasy points are so stupid. Tom Atkins game, 72 AFL fantasy points. I don't know fantasy point. It's I know it has nothing to do with actually grading who the best players are, but I think if
are you sure about that?
Put it this way.
Who would bother?
Put it this way. If it was, if you play, yeah, exactly. AFL, if you're playing AFL fantasy and you've got Tom Atkins for that game, and you don't get like much of an impact having Tom Atkins play that sort of performance, like he scored 72 points. I'm just doing a quick count. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh my God. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 players above him for AFL fantasy points. It's just like, I don't know, your system's wrong. I think you need to weight some of the more important footy skills a little higher in your little point scoring system there. But anyway, that's enough of that. We've done nearly 70 minutes of public show. We're now going to go over onto the OnlyFans. If you want to catch the rest of the show, we're going to talk.
We all have the same very specific deformity.
Yeah.
But you have to turn up to find out if our feet are where our nipples should be, or if we have nipples on our feet.
You'll be shocked and surprised and turned on
Maybe
at the
both.
same time.
Number 3 will surprise you. All right.
That's where Jake's
That's
nipple
the
is
third
on his
nipple.
third toe.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here. Let's go on to the Patreon show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. Make sure you check out all the usual stuff on the Hoops Crew this week and this weekend. Monday night, you're an absolute moron if you're not getting on post game live with Ben. Okay, so go and tune in. The man did like 3 hours of live show after the game on Thursday night. He's up till all hours. So go on, keep Ben company on Easter Monday evening on post game live. I'm assuming that they're doing it, surely. So yeah, go on over onto YouTube for post game live. Check it all out. Paul stuff, Ben stuff, our stuff. We're getting out of here. We'll be back next week with a recap, hopefully, of a big win over the Scummers. And until next time, go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.